Hi, welcome back to another week where we're talking to artists from the Rhode Island I.M.A.G.I.N.E.s exhibition, scheduled for fall of 2021 in Bannister Gallery. I'm here with Sara Picard, Howie Sneider, and Peter Tenney, and I'm going to ask my fellow participants to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name's Sara Picard. I teach art history at Rhode Island College, and I'm one of the co-organizers of the Rhode Island I.M.A.G.I.N.E.s exhibition.
Hi, everyone. My name is Howie Sneider. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm one of the artists who's participating in the Imagines Piece exhibition. Glad to be here this morning.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Tenney, and I'm an artist involved in the Rhode Island I.M.A.G.I.N.E.s exhibition also.
Thank you so much. I think Sara has a couple of questions for both Howie and Peter, so why don't you take it away, Sara?
Howie and Peter, thank you so much for joining us today and participating in the exhibition and letting us get this opportunity to talk to you guys about your process and about the sculpture and your involvement in the exhibition. So my first question is, why did you decide to participate in this exhibition?
I can take that. You know, I've done some work with gun violence pieces in the past. I had the fortune of knowing Boris Bally for a number of years, and was approached by him a few years ago to participate in a show that was using pieces from a buyback program. And I had a great time doing it, and sort of continued to build up some, it continued to be a theme in my work, both making prints, sculptures, drawings of using guns, and trying to help discourage people from the violence that is pervasive in our community. I was at the Steel Yard. I'm the executive director of the Steel Yard as in my other life. And I was at the Steel Yard working on a sculpture actually for a program called Guns to Plowshares that's started by a Unitarian church in Providence, Reverend Liz. And I was making a shovel, a ceremonial shovel to be used for planting trees out of an old handgun. And Pete saw me in the shop working on it and approached and was like, you know, we started talking about the project and the process in this sort of like artist way. You know, what are we doing? What are the techniques? How is it? What material and all that? And you know, Pete really said, hey, if there's ever a chance to do another project to, you know, address gun violence, I'd love to collaborate on it. So when Boris approached me about the Rhode Island I.M.A.G.I.N.E.s piece, I immediately called Pete and said, hey, you want to get together and do something? And I'll let Pete take it from there.
Yeah, so I've always been involved in guns and in the wrong way throughout my life, and you know, it took me years to get to where I'm at. You know, I mean, it takes everybody years to get to where they're at, but I was always taking steps forward and more steps backwards in my life. And the guns that I normally used in my life were for the wrong reasons. So after, you know, you know, finally getting, you know, my head on my shoulders right, and, you know, changing all the negativity in my life, I wanted to help take guns off the street and turn them into any kind of art, but not just art, but art with a message that, like, these guns can be used for beauty and you know, a better purpose. You know, hurting people and, you know, families and things like that those things don't really get out there. You know, that they'll be like, oh, okay, there was a shooting, and then people don't see the effect that that shooting had on, you know, the victim, the victim's family, you know, everything. And so to be involved in something like that was something that I really wanted to do. And I appreciate Howie's connections and, you know, his help. And he, you know, I appreciate Howie as a person too. He's a great guy. And yeah, just trying to get the message out there that, you know, guns don't need to be used for violence. We can use it and we can express anything through the use of art.
So that's a really great segue to the next question about transformation, and how did both of you together as a team, artist team, and individually think about your approach to transforming firearms into an artwork, and what was your process like?
You want me to go for that one, Howie? All right. So we, first of all, we got the guns that we were gonna, you know, have to turn into something beautiful. And then we just sat in that studio where Howie's at, and you know, we just started throwing ideas at each other, and then we started drawing things, and you know, just over and over, every idea we came up with, you know, whether it was related to the fountain or not, we just threw it in there, and we just kept, you know, speaking on it over and over, and then started getting material, and we started putting it together, you know, cutting some pieces off, putting them on differently, and you know, just making the whole thing work. And I had a great time doing that.
Yeah, and I think I can add to that too, that like we early on we came up with some rules for ourselves. We were like, all right, let's try to use all of the guns. Let's use every piece of every gun and see if we can challenge ourselves to do that. And we also decided pretty early on we didn't want to make something that made the guns look too cool. That we wanted to be honest about where these materials came from, what they were used for, um, and giving them a new life. So, you know, we really kept every blemish on the guns. We kept every, you know, there's like some little Elmer Fudd stickers on one of the shotguns that someone put there, and there's like there's a lot of character to each piece as it came to us. And some of them, you know, they're all long guns. We had 6 long guns that we transformed for this piece, and the axle for the mechanism in the fountain is made out of the barrels of one of the guns that was removed. And I think that challenge of trying to use all the pieces really forced us to sort of get creative. And the other thing I think we did was by not wanting to make a piece that was sort of precious in a way, we had to get into the headspace of like, all right, well, let's say that I don't know, almost like the character of like who's making this fountain, and and what do we think about these guns as just the raw pieces, and how can we make a cool fountain out of them, and to stop thinking about them in some ways tied to their history, but start thinking about them as like elements to their future, to what they could become. And I think that transformation, you know, that's a process for us as artists too. I mean, I have a shared studio here with like 20 other artists. I had to keep these guns under cover. I had to make a box to lock them in. So anytime that Pete and I weren't working with them, they were locked up and hidden. Um, and you know, I think that process for us too of being around guns in a positive way was in a safe way, in a transformative way, an important was an important personal process as well.
that's interesting how you used all the parts of the gun and transformed it, right? So that each part of these firearms is used and transformed, or given a new context and new value. So what do you hope viewers see in this work?
Well, I hope that people can look at it, and because if you look at the fountain, it takes a certain amount of time to go through the cycle. And me and Howie talked about that a lot, because we wanted it to be like a reflection, like one of them reflection pools. So when people look at this, they have to spend like a minute or whatever of their life, for it to go through the cycle. But in that time, they can reflect on any kind of, like anything that maybe some kind of trauma they had, that this may, this may help them, in some way or another. Because a lot of people in this state, in all the states, have had some kind of interaction with violence, whether it be guns, physical, mental, sexual, any kind of violence. They can look at this as an instrument of violence, that now they can look at it and see it as an instrument of peace, and just reflect on like whatever went on in their life, and seeing how the guns have changed, transformed. Maybe they can do the same, can help with healing.
Yeah, I think we wanted it to be a piece where that, like Pete said, would slow people down. There's so much anxiety around pain and abuse and experience, and we wanted this piece to calm people both audially and visually, and give people a chance for that peaceful reflection. And the fact that it takes the fountain a minute to cycle through, again, sort of, encourages people to sit and wait for the action a little bit, to be comfortable in their thoughts, and reflect, but, also not lose the present. There's something about the whole idea behind the fountain is it's a traditional Japanese concept, called Shishiodoshi, which means a deer scarer. And the idea is if the piece fills with water and then dumps the water at irregular cycles, which startles animals into awareness of a garden. So it would be for scaring deer or rabbits away from your garden, you would put something like this. And I think that splash, that recoil that happens, does help sort of keep us in the present, while giving us the chance to explore our inner thoughts and reflect and meditate on our own experience.
Are there other artists whose work you looked at as you were preparing this work, and what other source material did you draw from?
Well, for me, the first piece of art from a gun that I saw was Howie's first fountain that he made. And he also gave me this book on gun art. It's in here somewhere. Sorry, I'm unprepared, but I looked through all kinds of other artists' work, and but the fountain itself, that fountain was just me and Howie sitting there just throwing ideas at each other, and talking about our experiences, and how we want others to feel when they go through the cycle of this fountain. And you know, it's more of like, for me, like I've been, you know, I've been around guns in the wrong way for 45 years of my life. And, you know, the last 5 years, I've been trying to change that for the better. And to be able to get a message out there that, like, someone like me who can change their life around, and not only in the physical, but like taking objects that I used to use for the wrong reasons to turn them into the right reasons, and to try to get a message out there that if I can change, then anyone can change. You know, it just you know, just like the guns, we can change them from hurtful objects to beautiful objects. We can, as a people, we can change too. You know, if we don't just look at the gun, or numbers, like like there was 20 shootings in Providence or whatever this year. And if we can get away from that and like try to look to the effect of the gun violence, not the crime itself, but the effect it has on other people, then we can help other people change, you know? So that's where I get in there, because I'm really for getting the message out that people can change. I don't care if, like, where you came from, because I came from the bottom, and I I thrived on the bottom my whole life. You know, I felt most comfortable in prison. I you know, it's sad to say, but that's how I was. Like, if I got like a 3-year sentence, it wasn't nothing to me. It was like, that's not this serious. That was the mentality I used to have. So if I can go from there to where I'm at now, I'm a college student, I'm a business owner, I'm I'm a artist, I'm a person who's trying to help others instead of hurt others. That's like um 360, well, that's actually 180-degree change. Then I want to be able to get out there and get my message across to other people. Maybe I can change their life, and or someone in their life. So, you know, that's my goal now, is to help others and get the word out there that, you know, you're never too old to go to school, to do anything. It just, you know, it takes some of us, you know, 45 years to grow up. And you know, so it's possible for anyone. That's just my message. If I can do it, because I know me, if I can do the things that I've done in such a short time, then anyone can do it. I mean, it's the list goes on and on. The things that I've achieved in the past 5 years, that, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that anyone else who wants to change themselves can do it, and I'm willing to help.
It's been great working on this with you, Pete. I love your attitude, your energy around it, and I think that has carried so much of this piece forward. I mean, so much of this, like, the whole process. You know, it's exhausting territory to be in sometimes, to be sort of facing the pain and um, making work that is challenging, you know, and scary. I mean, to, like, frankly, it's a jarring experience for you and me and most people to sort of be around guns. You know, it's not comfortable space, um, and to have someone to talk that through with, to sort of to share that experience and bring light to this has been really powerful for me. Um, and I agree. It's, you know, it's never too late to learn. It's never too late to try to bring some right to these situations. There's still a lot of guns out there and a lot of suffering out there. And yeah, but you know, to the question too of like influences, I agree with Pete in some ways. You know, looking at a lot of I look at a lot of local artists. I look at a lot of my colleagues, folks who are in the studio here, what they're making. We talked a lot about garden design. We spent a lot of time thinking about what the what the environment was that we were creating. What did the pond actually look like? Why would we choose plywood instead of, I don't know, something else? And you know, and I think we were looking a lot at um, a lot at those sort of those garden green spaces and outdoors, and thinking about, you know, at one point we were talking a lot about leaves and branches and thinking about like what's the natural environment that these things can exist in at peace, and how do we as sculptors create that environment that allows this piece to exist, knowing that it's intended for a gallery, which is a beautiful gallery space, but is a fairly muted space. So we wanted to make sure that every element that we wanted to communicate had to be within this little world we were creating. Um, so I think we were looking, like all art, we were really looking at the natural world and the living world around us and trying to let that influence and reflect back through the piece itself. And again, unfortunately, there is a history, there's a canon now of work that is made around guns and violence, going, you know, to trench art movements from World War I, and the sort of the way that people who are interacting in a militarized and a violent society have had to make peace with uh, weapons of war, weapons of oppression, weapons of violence in our communities. So I think, you know, we both are influenced a lot by that, and we're aware of, you know, the Imagine Peace Now collections and other modern collections where people are making art with guns, and we wanted to do both be a part of that tradition as well as do something unique that brought an honesty to the guns and didn't try to apologize for anything that they are, um, and and again create that sort of world that can contain them, um, to give that chance for that honesty to express itself.
I'm wondering, have you thought about the afterlife for this project? I mean, I know that we're planning to install it in the gallery next fall. What happens after? Have you envisioned an ideal space or setting for this, or even scaling it up?
I don't know. We've talked about it some. I mean, we've talked about like where do fountains live, right? Like where are fountains common in our society, in our community? There's a lot of ways. You know, could this be something installed in a public safety complex somewhere where people have, you know, where people are rushing around and in these like aggressive headspaces all the time, where a fountain might give them a chance to pause. Are there, and that's, you know, that's a very that's a challenging space for a piece like that, like this. But you know, are like, or thinking about places where people go to heal and giving them the chance to, you know, putting a bench next to it and giving them a chance to do that healing. You know, I was lucky enough in the Imagine Peace Now show to have it travel to different places around the country, that specifically to different communities that want to address gun violence within their communities and are using art as a way to open that conversation and to get people to take the time to meet each other. This sculpture is a great place for people to meet each other and to sit and calm the energy that comes around these issues and maybe be that conversation starter. So, you know, I think we would be psyched to find a place like that where people want to use it as a conversation starter. Um, and that's really our intent. This isn't necessarily a piece for sale or for sort of private ownership in the long run, but we'd like to see it support the movement. I don't know if that's accurate for you, Pete, or if you have some other thoughts, but
No, that's exactly what I want. You know, I want it to be a place where people can open up to each other about what they've been through, or if someone can help someone through that. But sitting around it and you know just people conversating about things that went on in their life around that, and if it can bring any good, then our job was done well.
Sarah, do you have any other questions?
I don't. I think I really want to thank you both for participating in this exhibition and allowing Victoria to come into your spaces to hear your voices and get your voices out there as well, because not only does this work make a significant contribution to the idea of transforming objects of violence into something of reflection. Your perspectives are another layer on creating meaning for this exhibition and this work specifically. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'm excited that it's going to um, be at RIC. I know that there's a strong criminal justice program there, and I hope that there's some of those students get exposed to this kind of thinking too, so that they can work community building and relationship building into their futures, and not approach their careers as with an aggressive stance. I think that's important as we make the transition now to community policing, and really thinking about what it means to how we engage people, um, with violent pasts, from both sides. And I hope that there's a chance for some learning and some healing there too. So it's exciting.
All right. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you all in the gallery sooner rather than later, and to be able to see this work and all of the other amazing works that were created for the Rhode Island I.M.A.G.I.N.E.s piece exhibition in person. So stay tuned and stay safe, and happy holidays.